It is Tuesday night, and that means another episode of Goal Horns and Fight Songs. We did take last week off as kind of a start of the playoffs break for the NHL. And um, full disclosure, I'm gonna be a little bit distracted because got Game 5 going on right now between the Wild and the Stars, so got to be repping my jersey. But I think this week is a little bit more of a unique episode for us because we just have one topic to cover um, that came out recently. And typically we cover a few different things, but this week we have one area that we want to go over, and it covers a multitude of things, but should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think last week was the right thing to take off. The playoffs have definitely been a fun watch and an interesting watch. Plenty of series and games going to OT. The main conversation in the playoffs, as usual, has been refs making weird calls, but we've dealt with that all season long in the NCHC, so that's nothing new for us.
Yeah, and I was
that's
happy
not the
that
topic of discussion for tonight, just in case anyone's wondering. Not about refs.
Nope, it is not about refs. And I will say I was very happy after staying up Monday night for game one. Tuesday was a bit of a struggle for Mike. Watching that double overtime game starting at the ass crack of dawn, basically.
Dude, the schedule, this West Coast schedule is brutal for East Coast fans trying to watch hockey.
I'm just happy that we actually have a 7:00 start, and I was at the game on Sunday, and that 5:30 start I was happy with too, just because even if it did go to an overtime or two, well, then I'm getting out about the same time as a regular season game that's played at the X.
Right. No, I mean, every game has been good. They've been fun watches. I just got a message from somebody. We'll deal with that later. Actually, messages. We'll talk about that at the end of the show too. We do have some news to pass along at the end of the show about next week's show. But let's get into this week's show. We're looking at, for those who haven't seen the article, the NCHC should do the right thing. This is a college hockey news article. Oh, Dallas just scored again. It's 3-0 now. Man, your team sucks. It's a college hockey news article by Adam Woden. It's an interesting read for those who haven't read it. My notifications have been struggling to keep up with the group of 10 or so Western fans who have read it. They also decided to put the page Twitter handle in there too, so I've been clearing notifications twice for the same comments here lately. But no, I figured I would just use the episode as a chance to go through and give my take on this, and we'll go through the article and break it down. Actually, let me put that up on the screen right now. You will not see us. You should still be able to hear us, but the article is up there. I don't know if that's very legible for you folks over on YouTube. That's not bad. Not bad at all.
It's probably better for the aesthetics anyway.
But I mean, really, just go to College Hockey News, look up the article for yourself if you would like to follow along. I'm not going to read it because my reading skills out loud are awful. Reading internally, great, fantastic, wonderful. Out loud, not so much. But really what the article is talking about is Miami potentially wanting to leave the NCHC. Who should come in? They kind of make an argument for Arizona State. They don't really. It's really more of why Miami should be allowed to leave if they so choose, and to negate the buyout clause.
Yeah, the $1 million buyout. Or quote unquote buyout to basically save us from ourselves.
Yeah. They do mention that Miami has lost a couple of their better players this season. Ludwig Persson, apparently is the pronunciation on that, going to North Dakota, and Red Savage going to Michigan State. But here's the thing. I don't know if they're trying to make the argument that the NCHC would be better off, or if Miami would be better off in the CCHA. I don't complete, or if they're just trying to say, hey, just let them go if that's so their choice and bring in ASU. Like I said, they don't 100% make an argument for ASU, but I'm also trying to make the case that Miami may or may not, in my opinion, I'm really arguing that they're not any worse than Colorado College if we're just trying to say that getting rid of Miami somehow makes the conference stronger. Um, and really that the CCHA is a better place for Miami because Miami has really kind of struggled anywhere they've been. I mean, yes, they did have a run there at the end of the CCHA when they were helping to develop the the NCHC, because Miami is actually one of the founding conferences and was a big part of why we have the NCHC to begin with.
And they were the first champion, I believe, of the NCHC.
They were the second.
They were the second? Okay.
Yes.
I couldn't remember if it was 2014 or 2015 that it started.
Where is it? Hang on. I did a lot of stuff here. Yeah, Denver was the first Frozen Face-Off champion.
Shocker.
And Miami was the second in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I mean, if we're looking at, teams, again, it's not super far to say that Miami's completely out of it, but I mean, they're not really much further. Colorado, you could make the same arguments for Colorado College, honestly. You could push that Colorado College should be in the CCHA kind of like they were in the WCHA. Like, just go back to the old WCHA and leave the conference, because there's only been 3 regular season champions in the NCHC. Denver has won it 3 times. They shared it once with North Dakota. North Dakota has 5 regular season championships, with this 4 on their own and the split one with Denver. And St. Cloud has 3. So are we saying that no team aside from those 3 is really competitive in the NCHC, or are we saying that the league is pretty solid top to bottom? And unfortunately, some teams have to struggle, and it's been really 2 that have struggled since inception.
I think people get stuck on the old CC from the WCHA kind of back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, when they were a very competitive team, because they were, and then they went through they've been going through a dry spell. But with college sports, you're gonna get that. For the most part. You have your few exceptions: Kentucky basketball, Alabama football, Denver hockey. And look at what North Dakota did this year. Just because they've won that, they had a down year. I think it's a little bit more of a recency bias, as everything is what have you done for me lately.
But again, like, I can make that same argument for Colorado College. Colorado College has never finished higher than 5th in the NCHC regular season standings, and the reason they were 5th is because it was a 3-way tie.
And I think the other,
and Nebraska Omaha has never made it to the semifinals of the Frozen Face-Off tournament.
Yeah, they've never made it past the first round. I think the argument for Colorado College is, we have Denver right there. They just kind of, it's like the younger sibling when you're the older sibling, and we've all heard it. Well, let your little brother tag along,
Well,
all right,
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just playing the game of, if we're gonna poke holes, let's poke holes in every team and give every team the opportunity to why they shouldn't be left in the conference. There's 3 teams that have continuously struggled for the most part, and that would be Miami, Colorado College, and Nebraska Omaha. The 3 most consistently inconsistent, stuck in the bottom 4 teams.
Yes. But with that recency bias, it's they're taking a look, and so this is also, it's going to poke holes in it. They're taking a look at what Arizona State has done as an independent, and like their record, they're like, "Oh, it's a pretty good record." They look at what Miami has done lately. Oh, well, that's not very good. Who's to say that Arizona State, potentially coming into the NCHC with Miami leaving and going to the CCHA, um, who's to say Arizona State isn't going to come in and deal with the same thing and be the same problem or have the same problems that Miami does?
Yeah, I mean, who really has Arizona State played and been consistently competitive with? They played North Dakota, but North Dakota had a down year last year. They
It
struggled
played us,
against.
I think.
I think they might have split with you, but I think they got swept by Denver, who I don't think they have a win over Denver ever.
I don't think so.
Let's see. Let's go back. We're gonna go through their whole progression here. Their first year as a Division One team, 8-22, which is basically what Miami did last year. Honestly.
Hmm.
Uh, okay, calm down, computer. Let's chill out back there, making lots of noises. Second year, 13-20, and I don't care about ties. We're not bringing ties into this.
Yeah.
8-21, so a little bit of a regress. And that could be, maybe they're scheduling some better opponents here and there. 18, 19, 21, and 13. Let's see who is on this schedule. Alaska Fairbanks, Ohio State, Alabama Huntsville, Nebraska Omaha, who they swept, Penn State, Michigan State Harvard, Nebraska Omaha again, who they got swept by, Colorado College, who they swept. Hosted a tournament, lost or got swept by Minnesota. So I mean, some decent teams in here. So they're starting to build their schedule up a little bit in 2018, 2019. Not really competing against the top teams though. Really, I mean, they got swept by Ohio State when apparently Ohio State was ranked first. 2019, 2020, the season that got cut short. Apparently, they played some KHL teams. What the hell is this? They beat and tied Denver when Denver was number 4 in 2019, 2020.
Okay, so they did beat Denver once.
I mean, they're definitely getting better. I just don't know that they don't really have. I want to say they don't have any marquee wins, and that's kind of rough to say because their chances of making the tournament are so much lower, being that independent team and playing an independent schedule. And we saw that with Alaska this year. They should have been a team that was in, but because a couple lower unranked teams won their conference tournaments, it bumped them out.
Hmm.
2021, 7-16. 21, 22, 17, and 17. 22, 23. I think they also went 18 and 21. So a little bit of a slip last year, not much. They got swept by Minnesota Duluth, split with Bemidji State, swept Colorado College, beat North Dakota, swept Alaska Anchorage, swept by Clarkson, split with Minnesota,
Oh yeah, that's right.
swept by Denver, split with BC, got swept by Minnesota State. Only lost all 4 to Alaska Fairbanks, who we know was a pretty solid team last year.
Yeah, they actually really were.
So I mean, yeah, they're still struggling. They're inconsistent. Could you say that they're better than Miami? Possibly, but
I mean, I guess.
let Miami play their schedule and they play Miami's schedule and really see how it shakes out. Like, are they still comparable at that point? I don't know. You
Yeah,
know,
and I think I touched on this a fair amount of times, especially in the most recent weeks. Is it the program or is it the coaching staff? And I think the article makes it seem like it's just Miami as a program, and they've forgotten that they did have a strong run. And yeah, Miami's not like one of the quote unquote blue blood programs that are in the conference. But at the same time, there's something to be said about the coaching staff there when you're not getting your best overall player in person back,
yeah,
and then your your best forward back that they,
your best skater.
yeah, best skater in general back, um that he wants out. I The fact that they're saying it's just the program, I don't think that does it justice, because you look at just North Dakota's decline, especially with these, between last year and this year, and their use of the transfer portal, and kids, look at how many kids transferred out of North Dakota this year.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
definitely
they got guys in, but they lost a ton.
they lost their entire
Their
defensive
entire
core.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, and
So
then they bring in Ludwig Person, and they do sign a couple more defensive guys out of the portal. But I mean, really, like, what kind of position he's going into a position where he doesn't even know any of the defensive guys. They're gonna have to figure out the defensive scheme. It's going to be an entirely new defense in
he,
North Dakota from pretty much top to bottom.
he's going to have to learn how they play, and they're going to have to learn how he plays. Now, if it was still I mean, it was going to be the same regardless of who was in the defensive core, because he's a new goalie coming in. They need to figure that out, but at least he's faced these guys before.
This is true. He doesn't know the opponents pretty well.
Uh, but I'm just saying, like, if going to North Dakota, if they had the defensive core still intact, he at least kind of knows how they play from
Yeah.
being on the ice with them. Now he's got no clue.
I mean, maybe there's some benefit in the fact that it's all of those guys are going to be learning each other together. They're all starting from scratch, basically within the North Dakota system. But and that's a tough look all around. But again, like I'm also not trying to say that, like, if Miami does indeed want out of the NCHC, who's to say the CCHA is really going to be the end all be all for them, because they struggled in that conference too. Granted, it's not the same CCHA.
No, it is
It's
not.
not the same Miami, but Miami really struggled in the CCHA other than the last like 3 years of the conference. They were there since 1980. They had 4 regular season championships and 1 tournament championship, and that tournament championship came in 2011. So you're talking 31 years in the conference and 1 tournament championship. Now, they did
I
make the
think
NCAA tournament 11 times out of that conference, which is pretty good considering the other teams that
mhm.
were there.
I I think the argument that it would be better for them, to go into the CCHA, is the number of, especially this last year, the number of quote unquote bottom feeders that were in that conference. And then I don't know if Augustana, I think Augustana is also joining the CCHA when
I
they
think so.
come into. Um, so you're going to have St. Thomas, who's still building up their program. You have Lake Superior State, who is just, every once in a while they'll have a good team, but they're not usually not a top tier team. You're gonna have Augustana as a new team coming in. Um, then you have Mankato, which we have no idea what that team's going to be, because they're playing in Wisconsin now, um, with their new head coach and all the new players coming in. You have Northern Michigan, they're all right. You have Bemidji State, who they're they're all right. It's just not as strong of a conference, and I think that's where this is maybe coming into play, where it's like, if you guys wanna build the confidence back up in your team and build your program, the CCHA is probably where to go, especially geographically. Otherwise, I would say probably Atlantic Hockey. Um, they usually only have 1 team in the tournament per year, but who knows if they would do any better.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make. Like, I don't know that they're really any better off in the CCHA than they are in the NCHC, and the NCHC is a better conference. Like, it's where you want to be.
And I think that's going back to talking about the coaching staffs. It If you can't get top tier players to want to come play in that conference, yeah, oh, like I understand. You're probably going to lose out to um, Denver and North Dakota and even UMD because of recency bias again. That's fine. And well, even Western too now, because your program has been in the forefront of the conference the past few years. It's You're still going to get the right guys, and you have to get the right guys for your system in order to play against these particular teams, because you're going to play them for the most part 4 times a year.
Yeah.
You look at the kind of the best comparison I can think of right now is Jim Boeheim when he was at Syracuse. He didn't always get the 5-star recruits. He didn't always have the 4-star recruits, but he got guys to play in his system and he knew how to work it and he was able to retain them. Miami hasn't done that. And you could just tell even after last year, they needed to make a big step up. Otherwise, they were probably going to lose some guys. And I thought Person would have been gone after last year because, dear God, did that kid face way too many pucks. This year happens. Would they win one more game this year than last year?
If that,
They either won one more or one less. It's one of the two.
Let's see. And again, the point of this is not to
It's
dog on Miami by any means. Like, I like having them in the conference as an opponent just because of the rivalry aspect that they still bring with Western. But, again, they were one of the teams that was responsible for setting the conference up, and now we're just trying to toss them aside. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for either side to just be trying to willy-nilly get rid of the other. The 8-24-4 last year.
I think they won 7 games.
And 7-27-2 the year before.
Okay, yeah, so they did win one more game. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not trying to dog them either, and we lost to them this year. They can win games. They just don't win a lot of them, and it's not like they're getting blown out.
Ooh, their full schedule's out.
That's the other part. It's not like they're just getting beat 5-2, 6-1 every single weekend. Not every single weekend. And like I said, they beat us, and you went to overtime with them.
The second game, I wasn't necessarily talking about just us. I think they gave up like 14 points to Denver on 2 separate weekends.
Well, it's beside the point.
Just saying. Let's see. 4-0, 2-4 losses to Denver. 7-0, 7-0 losses to Denver. 8-0 loss to North Dakota. 5-0 loss to us. 5-4 loss in OT.
They got hammered by Michigan State. I remember that one.
7-1 loss to us. 5-2 loss to us. 5-3 and 4-0 to Michigan State. They did beat St. Cloud 5-0 though.
Yeah, I think
And they won 4-1 against you guys. So.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that one. I think especially in this conference, it's not hockey is not it's not like the other sports in a sense, because Big Ten football will just say, a Rutgers is very rarely going to be at the top. A Northwestern, they were in the Big Ten championship game a few years ago, but they're usually going to be towards the bottom. Minnesota, if we don't have an easy schedule, we're usually towards the bottom. Hockey is just a little bit different, and especially if you're playing in a tough conference like this, because there are fewer schools, but when you've had one conference so dominant, it's like the SEC in football. Where do all the best players want to go? Michigan, Ohio State, or the SEC?
Yeah.
Basketball, they want to go to the ACC. Baseball, they go to the SEC. Hockey, the Big East, or not Big East, Hockey East, has not been what it has been the last few years. What's the dominant conference? The NCHC. So even if you're sitting in eighth and you've been there in eighth for a while, if you have the right coaching staff, you can get back up and climb back up. You look at what Omaha did this year. They were sixth last year. They finished
third
this year. So you have the opportunity. You just have to get the right players and have the right system, because kids are going to want to play here in this conference. Miami might, while like Red Savage, might not be their first choice, but you know what? We still have better competition, I think, top to bottom, than the Big Ten, even though the Big Ten did put up snowmen in all of their first round games.
But they didn't win the title.
Nope. And that was the best thing. I might have been one of the only people in Minnesota not cheering for the Gophers.
I think quite a few people were not cheering for the Gophers, as far as Twitter would have you say, or would say, and a lot of people were saying, why weren't more people cheering for the Gophers? But beside the point. And even the quote unquote most stacked team in the country did not even make it to the championship game. So, that would be Michigan, with their collection of draft picks that they had for a second straight year, failed to make the finals.
I think it would have been a toss up between, just, draft picks aside, between Minnesota and Michigan for guys, because Brock Faber, I'm watching him right now on the TV, and Nyes also went straight into the NHL and is playing in the playoffs. So I think it was a toss up between one made it to the championship, one didn't, but neither of them won it.
Yeah.
And that's the second year in a row where the quote unquote most talented team, which, yeah, individual talent, probably yes, but as a team, no, did not win the championship.
So, I mean, it's a fun conversation to have. Let's go through. I want to see something. If I can find the stupid. If I just go over here. Again, it'll be interesting to see that, like, this year is going to be a fun year for the NCHC. A lot of teams lost a lot of guys. It's going to be a big shakeup. And it'll be interesting to see where things shake out. Can North Dakota get back to being, a top 4, top 3 NCHC team? Can Western Michigan build on another successful season? What is Denver going to look like without some of their younger guys? And we're seeing a lot of young guys move on too. Like, I think that's another thing that, like, I don't know that you necessarily need to put the kibosh on being in the NCHC if you're a Miami. Like, you're looking at a lot of teams lose guys who aren't staying 3, 4 years. And with the extra year from COVID, we're seeing a lot of experienced guys, but we're seeing those guys start to move on too and transfer out or sign pro deals. Like, there's always a lot of shakeup year in and year out, and I think that's what kind of bugs me the most about saying that Miami's this bottom tier team. Like, it can change on a dime. You can go from being the last ranked team in the NCHC, like Miami did literally the first year. They were the last team in the first year, to number 2 the next year. Or you can go from that 6 seed that we saw in Omaha B to number 3. Western's been down there a couple of times and built up. They went from 7 one year to 3 the next, 6 to 3. Last year's really kind of the smallest leap they've had, from 3 to 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they struggled. They struggled that year in the pod because they lost their starting goaltender. They lost
Yeah, right away.
right away, and still fought back to be 6th in the standings, and then the next year we're 3rd in the standings. So anything can
Yeah,
really happen.
and you just even look, UMD. We still finished as the 5th seed, but last year's 5th seed team was way different than this year's 5th seed team, and it was kind of a miracle that we had the 5th seed, and we could have been I think we actually could have been as low as 7th at one point, where like, if everything shook out, because Colorado College they had made a little bit more of a step up. I It changes so much year to year, and it's sometimes, I mean, everyone is guilty of it. People get so impulsive, and it's like, well, they've been trash for however long, let's just get rid of them. Detroit Lions, you guys have been terrible for however many years. Now they're looking pretty good. It's a pendulum
Yeah,
in everything. It it swings back and forth. Um, and you
and
just have to get the right people in there. I just don't think we should be ready to kick them out. And the other thing, well, not kick them out, but let them leave. But the other thing they said was, if they want to go, they've just been bad. Let's just waive the fee. That was one of the other things in the article. And I'm
yeah.
like, I guess, but then they stated it was so teams didn't come and go willy-nilly and keep moving conferences and jumping around. I'm like, well,
But
if you
isn't that
waive
kind of actually what you're asking them to do, though?
yeah, but my thought was, okay, you're trying to stop this, but then
You're encouraging it by saying, "Hey, we
you're
won't charge you because you've just been the bottom team for
right,
all 10 years of the conference," which isn't true.
right. It's like, okay, we said we're going to penalize teams, but we're just going to waive it. Well, okay, then that sets a precedent for other teams to do the same thing. Say Arizona State comes in and they have 3 sucky years and they're at the bottom, and they go, I think we want to join the CCHA too. Now, are you going to make Arizona State pay, or are you going to let them walk away as well? Because you can't have it both ways. Now, no team is going to join the Big Ten because the Big Ten is already established. Um,
I mean,
but
I think the Big Ten wants teams that are Big Ten in all sports, because there's also this push to potentially want to move away from one sport conferences. Yet, if you look at the hockey world, most of the conferences are one sport conferences. They're hockey sport. They're
mhm,
conferences. The CCHA, hockey conference, and CHC, just hockey. Uh, I think,
Hockey
honestly,
East,
hockey East, I think the Big Ten might be the only one that is a
they are
full college sport conference.
I think it's the ECAC is the closest
or Hockey East, but
because I
Big
think they're
East.
the closest because they have all the Ivy League teams in there. But even then, not all Ivy League schools have hockey. So
I mean, there's only what 60? Is it 64 Division One teams now? Maybe.
I think so. I was looking that up this past
Okay,
fall
so
or summer.
here we go.
Um,
Here are the conferences: Atlantic, Big Ten, CCHA, ECAC, Hockey East, and the NCHC. Like those are all just again aside from the Big Ten.
mhm.
Those are all hockey only conferences.
Right, you're not seeing somebody going into the NCAA tournament with their a 16 seed coming from the ECAC.
Yeah. I mean, who? I mean, who was it? Didn't Harvard lose the? No, Harvard won the ECAC this year, didn't they? Which one was
No,
it?
wasn't it? It was Cornell, wasn't it?
Maybe.
As the 4 seed.
Oh, maybe.
I think it was Cornell because they were
I
like
know
the
there
4
was a
seed
super.
coming
I
in.
knew there was a super low seed that ended up winning their conference tournament and bumping out Alaska Fairbanks. I think it was.
It was either
Um,
Cornell or Colgate.
I think it was Colgate. There might have been another one too. But I think Quinnipiac got bumped from their conference tournament pretty early too. Anyway, the
Yeah.
point is like if you're trying to move away from single and again, the MAC just stopped sponsoring men's soccer. So I think even conferences are okay with being a single sport conference as long as they're generating revenue and teams are productive and the sport is continuing to grow. I think it makes the most sense to just kind of I mean, I guess what are you going to do? You're going to do revenue sharing with the whole conference? I mean, they already do that. And schools also share revenue amongst themselves to build their programs. It's why you have something, like it's why certain teams has spend way more than other teams because they bring in revenue either from their football team or their basketball team or both in some circumstances. And they'll pay the extra to a hockey team that doesn't bring in as much. And then some places like North Dakota, they make so much on hockey that they can use that to stimulate other teams. Stop thinking so hard.
I'm looking at the ECAC, but
Brown, Clarkson, Colgate, Cornell, Dartmouth, Harvard, Princeton, Quinnipiac, Rensselaer, St. Lawrence, Union, and Yale.
no, I was looking at because it is technically.
Oh, it could be because it could just be Eastern Collegiate Athletic Conference hockey,
Okay, yeah,
so like
because
Big Ten hockey.
well, so according to Wikipedia, it says not to be confused with Eastern College Athletic Conference.
So I'm pretty sure they're
So
the same thing.
no,
I
it
think one's
used
just
to be affiliated,
oh,
but it is not anymore.
and now they've just added hockey. So yeah, so the Big Ten is the only one that's all sport conference.
Yeah, that's why I was confused because I looked up ECAC and I'm like, they got all like these divisions. What the hell?
And
Oh,
the other thing is too is like look how many programs where hockey is like the one Division One program,
mm-hmm.
or the one not necessarily only Division One program, but it's
The premier one.
yeah. Because I mean, like technically, I think maybe technically North Dakota's football team is considered Division One, but they're like
Yeah, they're FCS.
yeah
They're in the same conference with North Dakota State.
yeah they're not in the FBS. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're not
Well,
playing for the national championship in the playoffs ever.
right.
They're not one of those teams. Okay.
Denver in the Pioneer Conference. I think it is the Pioneer Conference. they're technically Division 1, but hockey is their sport. And then, I mean, other than, so North Dakota's Division 1, Denver's Division 1, Omaha. So I think eh, five out of the 8 teams are all Division 1 because Miami and Omaha also are. So then that leaves UMD, St. Cloud, and Colorado College. And Colorado College is actually Division 3 for everything else except for hockey.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's just there's a whole lot of weird nonsense going on in the off season about this and that, and this was the one thing that I cared to really talk about because not much else going on right now.
Yeah,
And it was an
there
interesting article, but
really
again,
isn't.
I think Miami's in the right spot. I think the NCHC is still as strong as it ever was. I think we still compete extremely well with the non-conference schedule. I mean, look at last year. So last year you had the number 5 seed in Minnesota Duluth win the conference tournament. This year you had a 7 seed make it to the uh, conference tournament finals and play a hell of a game against St. Cloud,
Mm-hmm.
who was the number 4 seed for the second year in a row. So it's not like the top seeds are winning the conference tournament every year either. Everyone's got a chance. You just got to be able to be consistent throughout the year, and Miami struggled with that all year long, and North Dakota struggled with that, and they still ended up, 6th.
Yeah, I mean, I'll, well, you look at it just basically up and down the board. Omaha, they always struggle at being consistent. This was just probably the most consistent that they've been. St. Cloud struggled to be consistent. They were great the first half of the year. They got swept by us when they were number 1, and then I mean, they won it, or they got the 4 seed by 10 points, but they were on a downward spiral. We couldn't figure out if we wanted to beat the number 1 team or lose to Miami. North Dakota struggled. I, it's it's very up and down. It's just who is the most consistent, and
Denver's the most consistent team.
yeah, Denver's they were the most consistent. Miami is the most,
Inconsistent.
I wouldn't say inconsistent. They're just
Most consistently bad.
yeah, most consistently bad at winning games. Because I think the most inconsistent probably would have probably fallen to UMD, where you just didn't know what team, and I said it basically every week. I'm like, I don't know what team's going to show up. But the opportunity is there. It's an interesting thought. If Miami really wants to do it, I
I'm
let them go. I mean,
I'm completely fine with letting Miami go if it's their decision to go.
mm-hmm.
But let's not say that we're a better conference for losing them.
Don't, yeah, yes. And don't do
Them a
what
disservice of saying they can't compete in this conference because they can compete. They've won this conference. They're
I think
struggling right now.
don't push a team out. And it's actually, it's kind of funny. It's the reverse of what happened to St. Thomas here. Is St. Thomas was so good in the MIAC at the Division 3 level that the other schools in the MIAC pushed them out and said, "We don't want you because we can't beat you." This is just, I mean, it's the complete opposite, but I'm not
Well, I think
for
this
pushing schools out,
I
because
think
this is saying you're so bad.
I think similar things happened with Arizona. I think they went on like a year undefeated streak or something before they finally made the move up. Like they were just ridiculous at whatever level they were at before joining D1.
Their club level, the
Yeah.
ACHA or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
like they were
I,
just smoking teams.
well,
But they've
Lindenwood is another team that is very good that's coming up. They have a women's program, but they were doing the same thing, and now they have a Division 1 team.
yeah,
Their
they
club team is being promoted up.
yeah, they played this year.
Oh yeah, they did. But I think wasn't it like that kind of half schedule, kind of like Arizona State did.
Maybe. But I know they played decent games. I think Denver played
Yeah, but I'm saying like
Arizona
they
State
played
played I don't know. I don't know what they're. Let's check right now. I
because I
think
think that seems to be kind of like the process. It's like you're Division One, but you can't make the tournament anyway
yeah, you can't make the
after.
tournament anyway.
So they kind of take that first year, especially to half Division 1, half Division 3.
They were 7-22. They played Minnesota, Michigan, Air Force, American International, Bentley, which I think might not be a D1. I don't think Bentley's a D1 school.
Yeah, they are.
Are they?
Yes.
Army, Wisconsin. I've just never heard of them. Wisconsin, Denver, Vermont, North Dakota. No, they played a full Stonehill because
Okay,
Stonehill's
so
just now going D1. Arizona, U.S. development team. No, they played a full D1 schedule.
okay. Okay. I just wasn't sure if they had done because I know Arizona State that first year that they did it, they played like Wisconsin, Eau Claire, but then they also played Denver, or it was just kind of a back and forth, and they're just using it as okay, we're Division 1, but we're not quite there yet.
Nope, they jumped in head first and said sink or swim. They went 7-22-1.
That's what St. Thomas did when they went full D1 too. But I didn't expect. I mean, a Minnesota school, if you don't go full D1 schedule right away, they already kind of were a laughing stock. But yeah, they learned what wasn't it 12-1 or something like that in their first game because they had to play St. Cloud State, who was fresh off of a Frozen Four appearance, and I was like, good luck. But yeah, it is. I'm not in favor of the rest of the conference trying to push a team out just for one reason or another. And it's with St. Thomas, it's like you're too good. Well, if they're too good, how about you get better so you can actually beat them? The only thing, the only team that can beat them in anything really was St. John's in football. And then Miami, oh, you're so bad. Well, they're gonna get better. They're, if the conference is this good, shouldn't you want more kids and shouldn't you want this try to get this team better who started it? Like, don't push them out because I don't think with how inconsistent Arizona State's schedule has been, like you said it and I agree with you. Who says they're going to make the conference better? They might do just as bad as Miami's done.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm seeing too is like, oh, they're adding Arizona would be so bad because it changes travel. Do you realize that like Miami and Western used to be in a conference with Alaska Fairbanks? Or yeah, was it Alaska
Yeah, you had
Fairbanks?
Fairbanks, the WCHA had
Anchorage.
Anchorage.
Yeah, like they would travel to Alaska once a year or every other year,
And the
and those two teams would have to travel every weekend to the 48, the lower 48. Like if a team's willing to do it and the school can figure out a way to do it, I'm pretty sure they don't really care about time zones or how many time zones you're changing or like
and
anything of those things.
the thing is, if you can go to Vegas, you can go to Arizona. It's not that far, and it's depending on which time of year it is, they're in the same time zone as Denver and Colorado College, or they're Pacific time zone. But either way, it's yeah, okay, it's an hour difference. It's still not that much of a travel burden to get there as trying to get up to Anchorage or Fairbanks.
Or scheduling a non-conference weekend again, a couple of non-conference weekends against the ECAC or Hockey East.
Right. The travel is not. That's just a dumb argument. It's it's no different to go from Duluth, in at least in my opinion.
Ouch.
Okay, so what, you get a little longer flight, but it's no different to go from Duluth to probably into Dayton and then go over to Oxford versus going and flying into um, Arizona. Like it it's a little longer flight. Oh boy. These guys probably take longer flights with their families in the summer.
Or I mean,
They're
or
going
they
to be
traveled
fine.
further in
In juniors
juniors, yeah. I mean, come on.
by bus.
Yeah.
So yeah, the travel argument is just dumb.
I mean, hell, Air Force plays in the Atlantic and they're in Colorado.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you were gonna put a team in the NCHC, like if a team was gonna leave a conference and be put in the NCHC, I might as well just take Air Force because
Air Force should probably
that
be at the top of the list because they would make Colorado 3 teams and Minnesota 3 teams or 2
yeah,
teams.
2 teams. Yeah.
I mean, really, North Dakota's pretty much in Minnesota.
They really are.
But geographically, not actually in. You know what I meant.
It's on the border.
Yeah.
It's like we're basically South Canada.
I'm just
anyway.
trying to not actually tick off North Dakota fans by saying they're in Minnesota. I mean, granted, whatever. They can be pissed about whatever they want. They're basically the Chicago Blackhawk fans of college hockey.
Yes, they are.
Not as bad as, Michigan fans who are the Montreal Canadian fans of college hockey.
Well, that's because they've won recently. North Dakota's won recently.
Well, yeah, that's why there's the Chicago version.
Yes.
And all because they literally mirror everything that the Chicago Blackhawks do.
Except their jerseys hockey. Now.
Yeah.
Except their jersey now. They are the Fighting Hawks now.
But
and I love irritating them.
Very similar jerseys. They have the same goal song. They
were the same. They had yeah. Anyway.
Hey, we spent an hour on this topic. I think that's more than enough time.
Yeah, I think we beat this dead horse enough.
So yeah, we can start wrapping her up here. I guess it's let's see what else. Anything before we get into so next week we should have a guest, or we will have a guest, should have a guest. Still we're planning on having a guest next week.
There's a 90% chance. I don't know what the percent chance is, but
provided everything stays okay on their end, we should have a guest next week. And it is incoming Western Bronco from the transfer portal, transferring from
Northeastern.
Yes. Sam Colangelo, I think is how we're pretending to say his name before I actually ask him how to say it before next week's episode. He has agreed to be on the pod next week. And then I have received a message back from someone else who I'm trying to get on the pod. We were trying to get on in the middle of last season. That did not work out, so we're now trying to set up something in the off season. I will reach back out to them here shortly. But next week we should have incoming transfer portal player Sam Colangelo from Northeastern to Western Michigan, which should be a fun conversation, talking about the transfer portal and how it works and how he ended up as a Bronco after having faced the Broncos a couple of times with his former team.
After getting that ass beat in Nashville.
Hey,
that actually would be that'd be a good thing to ask him about too. Just going through that whole situation.
From we their had side too, yeah.
Yeah, we had our problems, but as a member of one of the two teams.
And we might actually be able to get both perspectives if I can get the other guest to come on and tell us his perspective, because he would give us the Western side. So
I know who you're talking about.
Things are happening. Stuff's going on. People are ignoring text messages, which kind of hurts my feelings, but that's okay. I'm a grown man. Just suck it up and don't tell anyone about it and cry at night. It's fine. No one has to know.
You just snuggle your daughter.
Hey, my daughter's adorable, right? She was here pre-show.
She's very cute. Yeah, she was our pre-show guest. Yes. She was telling some some stories that I don't even think we could repeat.
She was telling tales outside of school is what she was doing. But I think they'll about do it. Do the normal YouTubey stuff if you feel so inclined. There's a like button. There's a subscribe button. There's a share button. Use them if you want to. Don't if you don't. Don't care. You can hit us up on either of our personal Twitters. Those are below our pictures and have been the whole show. There's also some information scrolling across the bottom of your screen, like the Twitter handle for the page, which is going down there right now. There's also a Gmail account that scrolls along the bottom. It started now. It'll finish here soon. You can hit up either one of those if you have questions, comments, concerns. I'll look at it. Depending on what your question, comment, or concern is, I might just ignore you, or I might file it away under information that is good to have, but really you're just being a mean jerk. So, those are things that could happen. Enjoy the NHL playoffs. Those are fun.
Yeah, I'm having a blast tonight. And I had a blast on Sunday. Actually, Sunday was fun. It was a good game overall.
I think the only Western player that's currently in the NHL playoffs is Brandon Bussey, who is riding the pine as the number 3 goalie for the Boston Bruins, who may now be back with Providence. I don't know, in the AHL playoffs. He's somewhere in there. There's some Minnesota guys playing on some teams. I think there might be some North Dakota guys on the Dallas squad, but I don't know if they're still with Dallas or if they're with Texas.
I mean, I know
there's a lot of.
I know Tufty from UMD got called up, but I haven't seen him play.
There's quite a few Western guys playing in the AHL. A few guys still left in the ECHL playing their playoffs. Guys everywhere, top to bottom, all kinds of leagues. So if you follow a team and check to see if you guys are playing in a playoff somewhere. But we're gonna get out of here. There's only one thing left to say. Pucks.net, good things happen, like goal horns and fight songs. Until the next episode. Adios, folks.